I had just started a new job as a marketing manager at a tech company, and he worked as a software engineer at a different firm. He moved to the US from France about 8 years ago and still had this charming accent that, I'll admit, initially attracted me to him. The night we met, he was so different from anyone I'd dated before. He could talk about art, politics, travel, everything. He had this sophisticated air about him that made me feel special when he paid attention to me. Looking back, I should have noticed how he kept steering our conversation to talk about my race, asking questions about my hair, my family background, and my experiences as a black woman. But at the time, I thought he was just being culturally aware and interested. Our first date was at this fancy French restaurant. He ordered for me in French, which I found romantic then but now recognize as controlling. He spent the evening telling me how different I was from other women he'd met in America. He specifically said I carried myself more like a European woman. I took it as a compliment, ignoring how he was basically saying European equals better. Things moved quickly after that. Within 6 months, we were practically living together. He would stay at my place most nights, saying his apartment was too far from work. He started making little comments here and there about my friends and family. He would say things like how articulate my father was, as if he was surprised a black man could speak well. Or he would comment on how my cousin who worked at a bank must have gotten her job through affirmative action. The red flags were all there, but I kept making excuses. When we'd watch movies, he'd complain if there were too many minority actors, saying Hollywood was just trying to be woke. If I called him out, he'd say I was being too sensitive and that in France, people could take jokes about race. The incidents kept piling up. Once, we were at a mall, and a group of black teenagers were being loud and having fun. Bruce grabbed my arm and said we should leave because they looked dangerous. When I confronted him, he said he was just being protective and that statistics supported his concerns. Things got worse in our second year together. We were at our favorite restaurant when our server, a Muslim woman in a hijab, took our order. After she left, Bruce started muttering under his breath about how they were taking over and should go back to their country. I was shocked and called him out right there. He tried to laugh it off, saying it was just a joke and that I didn't understand European humor. The real breaking point started building when my cousin got accepted into medical school. She had worked incredibly hard, maintained a 4.0 GPA, and done extensive research work. At her celebration dinner, Bruce had the audacity to say, loud enough for everyone to hear, that medical schools were really lowering their standards these days for diversity. My entire family went silent. I was mortified. After that dinner, we had a huge fight about moving in together officially. He wanted me to quit my job because he said it wasn't natural for a woman to make more money than her man. When I refused, telling him my career was important to me, he exploded. He called me the N-word and said I was just proving stereotypes about black women being difficult. I left immediately and blocked him everywhere. Over the next few weeks, I learned even more disturbing things. His colleague Lisa reached out to me and shared how Bruce would make racist jokes at work when no people of color were around. He would mock Asian accents and make comments about his black girlfriend being one of the good ones. Another ex of his, an Asian woman, contacted me saying she had a similar experience with him fetishizing her race. Now, through mutual friends, I discovered he's dating Tracy, a black pediatrician who's known for her work in underprivileged communities. She organizes medical camps in minority neighborhoods and advocates for better healthcare access for communities of color. The irony is painful. Bruce has been attending these events with her, playing the role of the enlightened, progressive European man. Last week, our mutual friend Sarah showed me their engagement announcement on Facebook. The ring in the photo is the exact same one he proposed to me with, which I returned when we broke up. It makes me sick thinking about how he's probably making the same comments about her being different from other black women, all while secretly despising her race. I have screenshots of his racist messages, recordings of some of his rants, and multiple witnesses to his behavior. Part of me feels morally obligated to warn Tracy about what she's getting into. She's dedicated her life to helping minority communities, and she's about to marry someone who thinks her people are inherently inferior. But another part of me worries about how this will look. Will I just come across as the bitter ex trying to ruin his new relationship? Tracy and Bruce have been together for 6 months, and he's obviously playing his role perfectly. He's attending her events, supporting her causes, and probably saying all the right things. It took almost 2 years before he showed his true colors with me. Sarah thinks I should tell Tracy everything, but my other friends are divided. Some say I should mind my own business, while others believe Tracy has a right to know before she legally binds herself to a racist. I keep thinking about how I wish someone had warned me about him sooner. Edit. Thank you for all the responses. Many are asking why I stayed with him for 3 years despite the red flags. I know it sounds stupid now, But he was extremely good at explaining away his behavior and making me feel like I was being oversensitive. It's embarrassing to admit how long I let him gaslight me about his racism. Update 1. After reading all your comments and thinking it through, I decided I had to warn Tracy. I created a new email account and spent hours composing the perfect email. I included screenshots of Bruce's racist messages, photos from incidents at work, and a detailed timeline of my experience with him. I made sure to include specific dates, locations, and witnesses to show this wasn't just a made-up story from a bitter ex. I sent the email late at night and spent the next 2 days anxiously checking for a response. When Tracy finally replied, her response hit me like a truck. She was furious. Her email was long and defensive, filled with accusations and anger. Bruce, being the manipulator he is, had apparently prepared for this. According to Tracy, Bruce had already told her all about his crazy, obsessive ex who couldn't accept that he had moved on. He painted me as someone who had been stalking him and trying to ruin his relationship since our breakup. He'd even shown her edited versions of our old text conversations to support his story. Tracy said he was completely open about our relationship and how it ended because I couldn't handle his honesty about racial issues. She wrote that Bruce had grown tremendously since dating me. She detailed how he now actively participated in racial justice initiatives, even organizing fundraisers for her medical camps in predominantly black neighborhoods. He had apparently donated significant amounts to minority-focused charities and was learning about systemic racism through books and workshops. What really got to me was when she attacked my career. She said Bruce had told her how I got my marketing position through diversity hiring and suggested that my bitterness stemmed from seeing him with a truly successful black woman. Her words echoed Bruce's racism so perfectly it made me sick. She was already repeating his talking points without even realizing it. After her email, I felt defeated but knew I had to try one more time. I reached out to Lisa, Bruce's former colleague who had witnessed his racist behavior at work. Lisa had recently left the company and felt more comfortable speaking up. She agreed to contact Tracy directly and share her experiences. Lisa sent Tracy a detailed email describing multiple incidents. She told her about the time Bruce made racist jokes during a team meeting when he thought no people of color were present. She described how he would mock Asian co-workers' accents behind their backs and make comments about their lunch smelling weird. She included screenshots of inappropriate messages from their work chat where Bruce had shared racist memes. Tracy's response was swift and harsh. She blocked both Lisa and me on all social media platforms. Then she made a long, public Facebook post about toxic ex-girlfriends who can't stand seeing interracial relationships succeed. She wrote about how some people hide their own racism by accusing others of it, and how she wasn't going to let anyone's jealousy ruin her happiness. Her friends flooded the comments section with support, calling me, though not by name, a bitter, jealous ex who needed to move on. Some even suggested I needed mental help for being so obsessed with my ex's new relationship. The irony of them accusing me of racism while defending an actual racist was painful. Yesterday, Sarah told me that Bruce and Tracy have suddenly decided to move up their wedding date. Instead of getting married next year as originally planned, they're now rushing to have the ceremony in 3 months. I can't help but feel this is Bruce's way of trapping her faster, now that he knows people might try to warn her about him. Then last night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Bruce. His message was exactly what I expected, threatening and racist. He wrote that I was just proving everything he'd always said about black women being dramatic and causing problems. He said I was demonstrating why he preferred dating educated, professional black women like Tracy instead of ghetto ones like me. He threatened to sue me for defamation if I tried to contact Tracy again or spread any more lies about him. He said he had saved all our communications and would prove I was harassing him. The message ended with him saying that he was actually glad I was showing my true colors because it made Tracy trust him even more. I've saved the message but blocked the number. Some of our mutual friends have started taking Bruce's side, saying I should have minded my own business. Even Sarah, who initially supported my decision to warn Tracy, is now questioning whether I did the right thing. I feel completely defeated. I tried to help another black woman avoid the pain and humiliation I went through, but instead, I've probably just pushed her further into his arms. Bruce has managed to twist everything around to make himself look like the victim, just like he always does. At this point, all I can do is step back and hope Tracy figures out the truth before it's too late. I just hope she doesn't have to experience the same racism and emotional abuse I did to learn who Bruce really is. Edit. Thanks for all the supportive messages. To those asking why I didn't go to HR about his workplace behavior, he was very careful to only make these comments when it couldn't be proven. Classic manipulator behavior. Update 2. Last week started with an unexpected call from Tracy. It was late in the evening, and her voice was shaking when she asked if we could meet. She said she needed to talk about Bruce, but didn't want to do it over the phone. We agreed to meet at a small cafe on the other side of town, far from Bruce's usual spots. When I saw Tracy at the cafe, she looked exhausted. The first thing she did was apologize to me. She said she felt horrible about how she had responded to my warning. Then she started telling me what had been happening since our last interaction. It all started at a family dinner 3 weeks ago. Tracy's younger brother, who is heavily involved in social justice activism, was discussing the Black Lives Matter movement and recent police brutality cases. Bruce, who usually played along with these conversations, started getting visibly agitated. When her brother asked his opinion about a recent incident, Bruce snapped. He said people needed to stop playing the race card for attention and that police wouldn't have problems with communities that behaved properly. Tracy said she initially defended him, making excuses about him being stressed at work. But that dinner opened her eyes to other things. During her medical camp's fundraiser the following week, he made several problematic comments. When a mother of 3 talked about struggling to access healthcare, Bruce loudly commented about how these communities need to stop expecting handouts and start taking responsibility for themselves. The real turning point came last weekend. Tracy was cleaning their apartment while Bruce was at the gym. She found his old phone in a drawer and noticed it still turned on. While moving it, she accidentally opened his WhatsApp chat with his friend Jean in France. The messages were all in English because Jean was practicing the language, which is why she could read them. What she found made her physically sick. The chat was full of racist jokes and degrading comments about both me and her. Bruce referred to us as his exotic collections and joked about getting 2 educated black women to fall for his act. He called us his social experiments and made disgusting comments about how he'd never actually have mixed-race children because he wouldn't want to dilute his bloodline. Tracy showed me some of the messages on her phone. There was one where he bragged about how he was using my failed warning to strengthen his position with her. He called both of us stupid for falling for his progressive act. Another message talked about how dating successful black women made him look good at work and helped him deflect accusations of racism. When she confronted Bruce with the messages, he went through his entire manipulation playbook. First, he tried to claim the messages were fake. Then he cried and apologized, swearing he would get therapy and change. When that didn't work, he became aggressive, calling her racial slurs and saying she was proving every stereotype about black women. She recorded some of his rants on her phone. Now Bruce is on a campaign to salvage his reputation. He's telling everyone that Tracy and I conspired to destroy him because we're jealous of his success. He's playing up his immigrant status, claiming he's being targeted for being French and not understanding American culture. His family in France has joined in, posting long rants on Facebook about reverse racism and how American women are too sensitive. Some people are actually believing him. A few of our mutual friends have taken his side, saying we're being too harsh and that everyone makes mistakes. His company is officially investigating the situation, but he's already telling people he's the victim of a witch hunt. Tracy asked if we could get dinner next week. She said she needs someone who understands what she went through, not just the racism, but the gaslighting and manipulation that came with it. I agreed to meet her. Despite everything Bruce put us through, maybe something good can come from this if we support each other. I feel relieved that Tracy discovered the truth before getting married, but I'm angry that Bruce is still out there, probably looking for his next victim. At least now there are 2 of us who can warn others about who he really is. Edit: some people are asking about legal action. Both Tracy and I are documenting everything, just in case his behavior escalates. Final update: these past few months have been quite a journey. Tracy and I have been meeting regularly, usually twice a week for coffee or dinner. What started as shared trauma has evolved into a genuine friendship. We discovered we have similar tastes in music, both love hiking, and share the same dark sense of humor. It's strange how something good came from such an ugly situation. Last month, one of Tracy's colleagues at the hospital mentioned that Bruce had started dating their new cardiology resident, an Asian American doctor named Michelle. When Tracy heard about this, she didn't hesitate. She immediately went to Michelle with our evidence, the recordings of Bruce's racist rants, screenshots of his messages with Jean, and our documented experiences. This time, the warning worked. Michelle ended things with Bruce the same day. Bruce completely lost control after that. He posted a long, racist rant on Facebook about how minority women in America were conspiring against European men. He used several slurs and went on about racial superiority. His mask finally slipped completely. The post circulated quickly in our social circles before he could delete it. His company's HR department saw the post. They suspended him immediately pending an investigation. After his suspension, more people started coming forward. Lisa wasn't the only one who had witnessed his racist behavior at work. Several colleagues shared stories about his inappropriate comments and jokes. 2 other women of color he had briefly dated also reached out to share similar experiences. His family in France is still defending him. His sister posted a long rant about how American cancel culture is causing him mental health issues. His mother keeps sending aggressive messages to Tracy and me, blaming us for ruining her son's life. We've blocked them all. Most of our mutual friends have finally seen Bruce for who he really is. Sarah organized a group of friends to help us document all the evidence of his behavior. She created a detailed timeline of incidents that showed his pattern of targeting and fetishizing women of color. Even people who initially defended him have apologized to us. Tracy and I decided to turn this experience into something meaningful. We started a small support group for women who've dealt with racial fetishization in relationships. We meet monthly at a local community center, and the group has grown to 15 regular members. It's been eye-opening to see how common this issue is. As for Bruce, we heard he's planning to move back to France. His company finished their investigation and terminated him. He couldn't find another job locally after his racist rant went viral in the tech community. Tracy returned his ring last week, the same one he'd used to propose to both of us. We're planning to sell it and donate the money to the medical camp where Tracy works. Looking back, I'm glad I decided to warn Tracy, even though it initially backfired. She told me that even when she was angrily responding to my email, a small part of her started paying more attention to Bruce's behavior. She said my warning planted a seed of awareness that helped her recognize the red flags when they started appearing. Next month, Tracy and I are going on a hiking trip together. It's nice to have something positive come out of this mess. We've both grown stronger from this experience, and more importantly, we've helped prevent other women from falling into Bruce's trap. To anyone in a similar situation, speak up. You might not be believed at first, but telling the truth is always worth it in the end. Edit, thanks for all the awards and support. For those asking, yes, we got security cameras installed, just in case.